What's going on, you guys? Dark Saint here with another video, this time talking to you guys about The Division. In this video we're going to be going over the patch notes 1.4. And if you look on the screen, there is a timetable so that you can jump to whatever information that you guys are looking for. Just go ahead and jump to what you're looking for and that'll be that. But for now, let's go ahead and jump into it. And for this video, I'm going to be going over all the highlights in the patch notes, but I will leave all the patch notes on the screen as well as all the patch notes in the description box below of where I got my information from. But because there's just so many notes, I can't go over each one individually like I normally would. It would just take way too long. Even if I sped read through it all and didn't really cover any topics, it would still take me well over an hour worth of talking, speed reading, just to get through all these patch notes. There is a very, very large, significant amount of information, so we're only going to be going over the highlights. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Alright, so starting out, you have a new feature, which is the world tiers. Upon reaching level 30, you'll have access to new tiers. This makes it to where you can choose which tier you want to participate in, whether you want it to be easy, normal, hard, or basically heroic. That's tier 1, 2, 3, or 4. And depending on which tier you fight in, that'll tell you the difficulty of the enemies that you're fighting. So tier 1, level 30, tier 2, level 31, tier 3 is 32, and tier 4 is level 33. And depending on those difficulties, that'll also increase the quality of loot that you are getting. So tier 4 enemies are the hardest, but they also give the most amount and best loot. So keep that in mind. It might be a challenge, but you do have a high chance of getting pretty good loot out of it. At activity difficulty in the same world tier, normal, hard, challenge will provide more rewards. So if you take on a challenge mode in tier 4, it's going to be really hard, but very, very rewarding. Just keep that in mind. Next, UI improvements. This is just basically your marketing and stuff like that. Vendors are going to be easier to scavenge through what you're looking for. You'll be able to buy back items that you might have accidentally sold. That's always nice to have. You can also favorite items that you don't want to sell or deconstruct. You can favorite them. That way you can lock them in place. You know, little things like that. That's basically what all this is, and I'll leave it on the screen so you guys can check it out and read it for yourself. But those are the highlights that I saw. The rest of it is just kind of weird little things like players no longer being able to open their inventory while under status effects. That's kind of vague because it doesn't even say if it's a positive or negative status effect. And, you know, there's some other things. No longer being able to be caught on fire and stuff like that. It's weird, and I don't even understand why that one's there. Why would you want to open up your inventory if you're on fire or something like that? I don't know. So, you know, little things like that. Next is the gameplay changes. Time to kill enemy NPCs has been lowered. Enemy AIs are a little bit smarter. Ammo capacity is increased after level 30. Plus enemy AIs also die a little bit faster. The time to kill is less, so your bullets mean a little bit more. So altogether, you're actually getting a pretty good increase to ammo. Not only a 50% increase to what you can carry, but you're also killing them a lot faster. So ammo isn't as much of severity as it used to be, or as some people felt that it was. Incendiary and explosive bullets will no longer apply status effects like stagger or catching things on fire, which I think is weird. Accuracy will be lowered by short duration after performing a combat roll. So after you roll, your accuracy is going to be a little bit off. We'll see whether or not that actually affects PvP or not, but we'll have to wait and see. Weapon magazines are refilled whenever you restock. Crafting material base of operations, all high-end quality after you reach level 30, that is. Scavenging is completely taken out of the game. However, that's only on new items. The ones that you currently have may still have scavenging on it. I don't know. It doesn't specify. It just says new pieces will no longer have scavenging in it. It doesn't say anything about old pieces. So odds are your old pieces will still have scavenging, but the new ones will not. Other highlights, rogue players on the map will now be a big skull if they're close, little skull if they're further away. Player grenades will now scale to the tier that they're in, so the higher the tier you in, the stronger your grenades will be, just something to keep in mind. Of course, that's against NPCs. Shotgunner NPCs will now have damage fall off and accuracy fall off, so you're not going to be getting sniped by a shotgun across map. And another highlight would be the player health progressively regenerates when you're not in combat. So if you're not actually fighting, or the game doesn't read that you're in combat, your health will continue to regenerate beyond its normal bracket. So you're not going to run around with 1 bar of health and it never break that bracket so long as you're not in combat. If you're not in combat, it will heal you all the way now. Other things is just enemy AIs are smarter. Aggro is going to play a little bit of a different role. We'll have to wait and see how much of a different role, but just from judging by this, they do say that aggro will matter a little bit more. Activities, loots, and rewards, going over your highlights. Removed new gear set weighing from incursions. Any gear set can now drop from any activity. So you can get high quality gear sets even outside of the incursions, your 229s and stuff like that. You don't have to be in an incursion to get the best gear. You can get it from any activity. Of course, the more difficult it is, the higher your chances of getting a pretty good item. Weekly and daily assignment loot caches now drop items scaled with the player's current gear score. Level cap is still there, mind you. Like, you can get to level 30, but now there's an experience bar that levels up past level 30, and every time you fill that up, you will get a loot cache. Similar to how it works in the underground, except both now in the open world and in the underground, whenever you get in the open world to level 30, or you're about to hit 31, rather than going to 31, it'll just overlap and you'll get a loot cache. Same thing in the underground. Once you get to max level 40, you can continuously level up, but rather than going to 41, you'll just circle your experience bar and you'll get a loot cache for it. Something else that's worth mentioning is open world roamer NPC groups and bosses are now back in the open world. They will respawn every 4 hours. I don't know if that's a typo. I originally heard it was every 24 hours, but according to this, it's every 4 hours. Unfortunately, this did not make it into PTS Week 3 and will be included in Update 1.4. So the AIs that roam around the open world, they will continue to respawn. Just something to keep in mind. And according to this, they're supposed to respawn every 4 hours. So just keep that in mind. Going over your main missions, here are all your rewards for your main missions, your search and destroy, things like that. And I'll go ahead and let you guys read through that if you want. And this lets you know what you can earn from all these activities. The only ones that I really want to point out is specifically the incursions. Falcon Lost now has checkpoints. Every time you set a C4 on the tank there at the end, the ATV, whatever, it'll detonate the C4, and upon detonation, you'll get a checkpoint. Just something to remember. The Four Horsemen cover that everyone's been using, that little box in the back, that will cause the cars to come after you regardless. They're not just going to stop in front of you and detonate. Of course, this means that we'll just have to find a new activity in farming this. The Four Horsemen will continue to drop items. People will still be able to farm them. You just got to figure out the way to do so. And us being players and us obviously looking for the easiest and fastest way to level up, I guarantee that this farming is going to continue. It'll just be another way of doing it, so be sure to keep an eye out for it, and I'll be sure to keep an eye out for it, and I'll post a video as soon as somebody finds the best way to farm it, and I'll let you guys know how to farm the gear out of the Four Horsemen. Ability cooldowns will now reset when the group wipes. So if you die and you go back to last checkpoint, you don't have to wait for your skills to cool down. They will automatically cool down. I'm assuming this also means your super abilities, but it doesn't specify, so we'll have to wait and see. Also, gear set items and stuff like that aren't going to quite work in each incursion like they do now. Previously, you could only find certain gear sets in certain incursions. Say, for example, the Sentry's Call Striker set, you could only earn from killing the boss at the end of the incursion. You could find them in other places, of course, but you wouldn't get them from, say, killing the boss in Clear Sky or in Dragon's Nest. In Clear Sky and Dragon's Nest, you got gear sets that were determined by them. That's no longer the case. Now, when you run Falcon's Lost, you can get gloves and masks, and they can be of any kind, but they're only going to be gloves or masks upon killing the boss. Same thing for Clear Sky, you're going to get body armor and holster, and for Dragon's Nest, you're going to get the backpack and the knee pad. So if you're looking for a chest armor that's Striker, you're going to be running a lot of Clear Skies until you find that chest armor that is Striker and that has good stats. Just keep that in mind for those of you guys that are out there looking for the next thing. Of course, like I said before, most people are just going to continue farming the Four Horsemen in hopes of getting what they're looking for. Again, I'm going to leave the rest of the rewards on screen so you can see what they are, as well as the Dark Zone rewards there at the end. Next, gear stats. Again, I'm just going to leave most of the stuff up on the screen so you guys can read through it if you want to. Just go ahead and pause the video wherever it is that you guys really want to read, because there is just a ton of information here. Mainly the highlights. After 182, the gear pieces will have all 3 attributes on them. At 182, you will have 48 firearm stamina electronics. At 204, you have 101 firearm stamina electronics. And at 229, you'll have 148 firearm stamina and electronics. Of course, you will have some things that contribute more than others. I believe that it will give you an increase to firearms or stamina, or maybe an increase to firearm electronics, depending on which one you get. However, they all will have a base stat of 148. Just letting you guys know. The rest of this information's there's just so much of it. Again, like I said, I can leave it on the screen. If you guys have any questions about anything in this video, please leave a comment. I'll answer it to the best of my ability. But again, it's just so much information. There'd just be no way for me to read through it all and be able to compile it into one video. Please, 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 if you have any questions, leave the comments down below and I will answer them to the best of my ability as soon as I'm able to catch up with you guys. I promise I'll answer as many questions as I can. I know there's a ton of information in these, so feel free to ask me any questions you have about any of these rebalances on the gear talents or anything else. Next, we're going to take a look at the skills. Global changes. Skill power will not scale linearly anymore. That's basically saying that rather than going straight up as you level until you hit a hard cap and then it stops out and that's as high as you can go, it will forever be able to be increased. There is no longer a cap on your skill power. However, it will start to fall off. So after you get to a certain point, the skill power will keep increasing, but you won't get as much of a output as you would previously, if that makes sense. So once your skill power gets really, really high, you might not see such a dramatic increase with your abilities. It'll still be an increase, but it won't be as dramatic as you would normally go from going from level 30 to having gear score 220, for example. After you hit that, then it'll be a lot harder for your skill power to keep going up. That being said, there will be some skills that still have hard caps. Just keep that in mind. Again, I'll leave everything on the screen. If you have any questions, feel free to ask away and I will answer them again to the best of my ability. And there's pretty much patches on every single skill in the game, so be sure to read through them, or at least read through the ones that you specifically enjoy using. For me, my main thing would probably be First Aid and Seeker Mine, and that'll probably change with this update. Just keep that in mind. One thing I did want to point out for those of you guys that do use Smart Cover, Smart Cover will not begin cooling down until after the Smart Cover's destroyed, so it might be a good idea to run 2 of you guys with Smart Cover from now on and cycle out. One guy put his down, wait for his to expire, and as soon as it expires, the other guy puts his down. Because like I said before, they're not going to regenerate until they've been used. Just something to keep in mind. Moving on, looking at weapons. Finally getting to the weapons. This is something that everybody's been looking forward to, the weapon changes. Now there are a ton of weapon changes and I will be going over the highlights like I've been doing. However, there are a lot of questions that I still have myself. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask in the comment section. I will answer them to the best of my ability as soon as I can. So feel free to ask away, and like I said before, I'll read over the patch notes myself. I'll keep checking out the state of the game and stuff like that, and I will let you guys know my opinions on all these changes. Just let me know what your questions are, and I will answer them to the best of my ability. Ton of information here, so let's go ahead and get started. Starting out with some of the global changes, named weapons will no longer be locked to specific gear score other than the Damascus pistol, which will only be available at that gear score. The rest of them you will be able to find out in the wild. However, they are getting rid of the blueprints from the vendors. If you have the blueprints already, you can go ahead and you can craft them as many times as you want. However, they will be locked to that gear score that you're crafting them at from the blueprint that you purchased. The rest of the blueprints will no longer be sold, so if you don't have the blueprints, you might want to go ahead and collect them now, because after patch 1.4 they will no longer be sold by the vendors. They will be gone. So if you don't have the blueprints now, you probably won't in the future for the named weapons. Just something to keep in mind. Not that there's that many named weapon blueprints out there to begin with. Anyway, so now you can find any named weapon that you're looking for aside from the Damascus at whatever level that you're at whenever you're running out in the world. Any activity can drop it. So you can find your Damascus, I'm sorry, not the Damascus, the Caduceus, the Showstopper, the Midas, a variety of other weapons. Be sure to keep an eye out for those if you guys are looking for them. Me personally, one of the best weapons I'm looking for is the Peck Hand. I would love to be able to use the Peck Hand at a 229, plus after the buff that the LMGs are getting. Definitely looking forward to that Peck Hand if I can find it. So that's the gun I'm crossing my fingers and hoping to be able to find, as well as the Showstopper. There are a few other little changes that are being done to the weapons across the board. So if you have any questions about any of the changes, be sure to let me know. Weapon talents have been rebalanced. That includes all the weapon talents. Brutal, deadly are being nerfed rather dramatically. Keep that in mind whenever you're going for your weapon that you're looking for. A lot of these are going to be changed, so just keep that in mind whenever you're building your weapons. However, they did say it is supposed to be a little bit easier and not so much RNGesus whenever you're trying to get the rolls that you were looking for. However, with the way the game is going right now, we'll have to find the new meta, and I will continue to let you guys know which ones are the best for the specific meta in the future videos that I will be making. This is basically a revamp of everything we know about the division, so be sure to stay tuned and see what we can come up with in order to make your weapon stronger for both PvE and PvP, depending on what you guys are looking for. We also have a lot of weapon balancing across from assault rifles, LMGs, SMGs, shotguns, marksman rifles, and pistols. Basically, all your pistols are getting a damage increase other than the X45, which is getting a nerf by 40%. Just keep that in mind. The X45 is getting a pretty dramatic nerf. In comparison to the other pistols, it's pretty strong, but we'll have to see how that works out. Marksman rifles, the M1A is getting nerfed hard. It's getting a 35% damage reduction on the M1A, which is smacking the crap out of it. The rest of them are getting a buff, including the custom M44 or the M44 across the board is getting a damage increase by 15%. One of my personal favorite weapons is the M44, so hopefully it'll make it even that much better, and that's probably what I'll be running with in the future as well for both PvP and PvE. All shotguns that are 229 are getting decreased by 30%, so all your shotguns are going to be nerfed, including my Super 90, which I'm kind of upset about. However, the Showstopper is actually getting a buff and getting a damage increase by 20%, so maybe we'll see the Showstopper being able to pull out some really good kills in the future, and maybe it'll actually become a viable weapon in the future with a 20% damage increase. SMGs pretty much across the board are getting nerfed, every single one of them. Reduced critical hit damage bonus from 47% maximum to 38% maximum. So not only are they all being decreased in damage, but their critical hit damage is being nerfed pretty much across the board. The one weapon that's being nerfed the least is the SMG9 and the MP5. They're getting the least nerf. The AUG's getting the least of the nerf, but they're all pretty much getting nerfed. Just keep that in mind. LMGs are getting a pretty significant buff. RPKs are pretty much staying where they are. So that includes the Peck Hand. I thought that there would be a buff to it. Once upon a time, I read that there was, but we'll have to wait and see. Like I said, these patch notes may change, but these are the most up-to-date patch notes, and they literally just got updated, so I don't think that we'll be seeing too much of an increase in that specific one. We'll just have to wait and see where they fall in the meta. We got the M60s getting a pretty good damage increase. The L86 is actually getting a little bit of a nerf by 7.4%. We'll have to see where that puts it. G36 is getting a nerf by 5%, not that big of a deal. Caduceus has had its talents modified to replace and remove the talent restored to better fit the new gear score scaling. It now has the following talents, which is talented, killing a target with the weapon increases your skill power by 15% for 20 seconds. Does not stack. Competent, whenever you use a skill, your weapon damage is increased by 10% for 15 seconds. So whenever you use a skill. Determined, killing a target reduces your skill cooldown by 7.5%. So the Caduceus is still viable, still more of an electronics build, but we'll have to wait and see exactly where that falls in line with the current meta. Next, we're going to go over gear sets. There are several changes to the gear sets, including removing 5-piece bonuses from all the gear sets that had one, like your Sentry's Call and your Striker. They no longer have that. However, Striker is also going to be fixed. That's one of the patches that they're doing below. I am going to go ahead and mention it now. The Striker set bonus is being fixed to where you can swap weapons and you're not going to lose your Striker bonus. So if you enjoy using shotguns to boost it up and then swap to another weapon to get your damage out, you can do that again. Thank God. I was so mad whenever they hit the Striker with that, but it is supposed to be fixed. Other things is gear sets of 191 are going to 163, 214 going to 182, 240 going to 204, and 268 going to 229. Whether or not that will change the maximum stats that we can get is still yet to be determined. What I mean by that is the range of high-end stats going to be different from the range of gear sets? Even though they're the same gear score, maybe the stats might still have a different range. Just keep that in mind. We'll have to wait and see what that means with update 1.4. Striker's battle gear, 2 pieces 20% stability, 3 pieces 10% armor damage, 4 pieces gives you your striker bonus. Let's see other things to look at. Sentry's Call is getting changed. 30% ammo or aiming accuracy. So for 2 pieces you get aiming accuracy. 3 pieces get headshot damage. The 4-piece headshots mark enemy, increasing damage only by 5% for a duration of 30 seconds, but target can receive up to 3 marks, giving it an increase to 15%, which is a pretty big nerf to the Sentry's Call. Just keep that in mind for those of you guys that enjoy the Sentries. It is going to be nerfed pretty hard. It does keep its headshot damage with 3 pieces. However, there is another one that's going to get even higher with the Hunter's Faith. 3 pieces give you a 20% headshot damage. So if you're really looking for headshot damage, you'll be able to combo the Hunter's Faith with the Sentry's Call, giving you a pretty good amount of headshot damage if you run 3 and 3. However, there might be better options than that in the meta once we get there. But I can see a lot of people opting for the Hunter's Faith now over the Sentry's Call, going ahead and taking the 20% headshot damage increase from the Hunter's Faith. There's a few other things to keep in mind with these, but like I said, I'll keep them on the screen so you guys can check them out and decide which one you guys are really desperate to try out first. We'll just have to wait and see. Next, of course, is your bug fixes. These are all the bug fixes that are coming with the update. Again, I'll leave all these on the screen so you can see what's being changed. You got fixes in your skills, in the underground, and gameplay, talents, controls, gear sets, and UI. Ton of fixes coming with this game. And like I said, just a ton of information given with this update. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. I will leave everything on the screen so you guys can read through them individually. Be sure to check them out. And I will also leave a link in the description box below to where you guys can go and check out the patch notes for yourself. And maybe they will change it before the actual release on the 25th, but I really don't think there's going to be any changes at all. And if they are, they're only going to be minor changes to these patch notes. So, like I said, if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. And I will catch you guys next time in the next video. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Peace!